Morning, I'm Elizabeth Pran in for Robin Meade. Let's get straight to the story that was developing overnight. The search for Gabby Petito's fiance is now a nationwide manhunt. A federal arrest warrant has been issued for Brian Laundrie. The indictment claims he spent more than $1,000 on a bank card that doesn't belong to him. And the charge happened after Petito went missing. But as Leila Santiago reports, Laundrie has not been called a suspect in her death.
A federal warrant has been issued for the arrest of Brian Laundrie. And of note here, this is for the use of unauthorized devices, specifically a debit card and access to bank accounts. There is no mention of homicide. And remember, on Tuesday, a coroner's initial determination of Gabby Petito's death was homicide.
CNN legal analyst Paul Callan says the warrant will help authorities try and track him down.
The effect of this in the investigation is important because every FBI agent, every law enforcement person in America who spots Brian Laundrie can now place him under arrest with the authority of a federal grand jury. And the second very important thing is that anybody who helps Brian Laundrie keep himself concealed from law enforcement authorities is harboring a fugitive from justice and faces as much as 10 years in prison. So I think this will be a great aid in the investigation of the Petito homicide.
HLN legal analyst Joey Jackson is with me now to break this all down. Thank you so much, Joey. I know it's early, but I'm sort of curious about this new arrest warrant. Is this the next step, and how does this help with the search?
Yeah, Elizabeth, this is a major development to be sure, okay? And let's talk about why. I think, number one, it indicates that the authorities and prosecutors have been presenting the case to a grand jury. Before now, we didn't have that information, right? What is a grand jury? A grand jury is a body that convenes, that determines not guilt, but whether there's reasonable cause to believe that a crime was committed and the subject of that grand jury investigation and proceeding committed it. Number two, yes, we know that that is the grand jury, indicted on one count of unauthorized use as it relates to the debit device. But if you look at what it says, it talks about August 30th and September 1st. You don't get to unauthorized use unless you conclude that the person who used it, that is Mr. Laundrie, didn't have permission and authority. You don't get to the issue of whether he didn't have permission and authority, Elizabeth, unless you get to the issue of she was not around at that time. What does that tell me? It tells me evidence would have had to been presented to that grand jury with respect to her being missing and even dead. And so authorities could potentially have forensically gave the grand jury the indication that based upon their review of the information, she was not available, that is Miss Petito, to give him that authority to use the debit card. So to be clear, I think that grand jury will continue to look into the case, and they will vote out other counts moving forward given further information that they get. Number three, the arrest warrant that we have here allows nationally for him to be arrested. If he travels anywhere, it's going to pop up and it's going to allow him otherwise to be brought to justice. And number four, based upon the arrest warrant, he is officially a fugitive of justice. And based upon that, anyone associated with him now has an obligation not to harbor him, and they themselves would be put in danger. So this is a major development that authorities just announced with respect to the indictment and the arrest warrant.
Okay, I'm going to ask you two questions, if I could. When you said the grand jury is looking at that case, are you saying that they could possibly upgrade charges? That is the first half of my question. The second half of my question, you mentioned that he is a fugitive now. Does that sort of draw more attention to the family? And could they perhaps know where he is or have any information prior to him gone missing?
Yeah, so great point starting there. Now, we don't know what the family knew, or certainly when they knew it. I think that would be vetted out. The family has no obligation to speak at all, and therefore, in the event that they decide not to cooperate with police, that's their right. We also don't know what, if any, assistance they gave him, what, if anything, they knew with respect to whether he was leaving and not coming back, what, if anything, they knew with regard to what he did, when he did it, how he did it, why he did it, etc. So that becomes problematic. Fanning that out, if anyone, for example, now knows his whereabouts, they have no, look, we don't have a Good Samaritan obligation at all, okay, Elizabeth, so we don't have to go and say, okay, I saw someone, but I didn't report it. That's different from giving material aid, material support, or doing anything that would otherwise give him safe harbor from the police. Moving back as it relates to the first question, yes, about the grand jury. I think you don't go into a grand jury and convene them for getting a single count of an unauthorized use of a credit card or debit card indictment, electronic device. You don't do that. You're in front of that grand jury supplying it with information. What prosecutors do, Elizabeth, is you convene a grand jury, you present information to the grand jury. What information? Facts about the case, about what you believe you have, witnesses, any documentary or other evidence. That's what you do. And then you vote out indictments after you've given the grand jury facts sufficient to meet out the elements of that particular offense. So what that means to me is they've presented the information. They'll continue to present information, they being prosecutors, to the grand jury. And as we progress, I think you'll see them vote out other charges. Now, the bigger question is where he is, right? And it'll be contingent upon whether he's found, and he's found, obviously alive. But in the event that he is, he's in for a world of hurt. I don't think the final analysis of that grand jury will be that he's only responsible for this debit transaction. I think there's a lot more that the grand jury will indicate that he's, responsible for. Last point, everyone, of course, is entitled to the presumption of innocence, not suggesting otherwise. He could have a very viable defense. He could be innocent. A grand jury indictment is an accusation, but it starts the process going, Elizabeth, and this process has been started with that single count. I anticipate there will be multiple more counts added as we move forward.
Yeah, and as we've watched, it seems as if something develops every day. So I'm certain that we'll go to you for expertise. Joey Jackson, thank you so much.
Look forward to it. Thank you, Elizabeth.
All right, live now to Imra Walker, who is in Venice, Florida, near where authorities have been searching for Brian Laundrie. First of all, thank you for joining us. And can you just tell us what this arrest warrant means for the search?
Hi there, and good morning to you, Elizabeth. Yeah, I mean, just as you heard Paul Callan say, this arrest warrant basically just frees up more resources for investigators as they continue to search for Brian Laundrie. But let's talk a little bit more about this arrest warrant, because it actually focuses on alleged activities of Brian Laundrie after Gabby Petito's death. Now, according to this indictment from the U.S. District Court in Wyoming, Brian Laundrie is suspected of using a Capital One bank debit card and PIN numbers, personal ID numbers, connected to 2 bank accounts that did not belong to him. And he's suspected of charging over $1,000 to these accounts, according to the indictment, knowingly, with the intent to defraud. Now, the key thing here are the dates as to when these activities allegedly happened between August 30th and September 1st. That's important because, as you know, September 1st, that is the date that Brian Laundrie just abruptly showed up to his Northport, Florida home without Gabby Petito. We had witnesses placing him days before on August 27th, one of the last sightings of Gabby Petito with her at a restaurant in Wyoming. And then days later on September 1st, he shows up in Florida. So during that time, he presumably must have been driving from Wyoming to Florida. So that's key there. Also, we're hearing from the Laundrie family attorney, Steve Bertolino, who is stressing, again, the point that the arrest warrant is not related to the actual death of Petito, but activities that happened after her death. This morning, we're here still again at the Carlton Reserve. We are going on now day 6 of the search for Brian Laundrie. Yesterday, the search just turned up nothing. Elizabeth.
There's been a major development overnight. Brian Laundrie left his family home in Florida, we know now, without his wallet or his cell phone. That's from a source close to the family. That person says the Laundries are concerned he could try to hurt himself, but police haven't commented on either of those. A neighbor of the Laundries say that she saw Brian in his yard right around the time Gabby Petito was reported missing. Here she is.
Was probably the weekend, either the Friday, September 10th, give or take. Saw him and the family in the neighborhood out in the front yard. I thought it was just, again, a normal, they were going for a walk kind of, thing. So never thought anything about it.
That is Karen Aberts, and she says she often would see Laundrie and Petito outside. They'd be fixing up that white van that they used on their cross-country trip. Laundrie came home from the trip, as you know, September 1st, but he was alone. Petito's family reported her missing. 10 days later, her remains were then found on Sunday. A lot of people really laser focused on this story. Be sure to watch HLN this weekend for a special report on this case, the Gabby Petito investigation, cross-country nightmare. It's live this Saturday and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern and Pacific right here on HLN.